happens when you balance your finances, career, and your well-being? There's no limit to what you can achieve. This is Finance, Fitness, and Finesse, a dimensional wealth podcast hosted by JaeVic, where building wealth with wellness isn't just a goal, it's a way to live intentionally. In a world flooded with information overload and misleading highlight reels, F3 is your podcast to help you realize you're not woke, you're broke, and how to change that in your favor. If you're looking to elevate your wealth, well-being, and discover the power of balance, tune in to learn why money matters, but wellness counts.
And when you think about like a lot of the financial interactions that kids have with money in their childhood, it's all about receiving. It's never really about saving, or if it's saving, it's kind of forced saving of like a piggyback or whatever. But like psychologically, kids are rarely put into a position where saving money is an incentive.
Hey, Finessers! Welcome to another episode of Finance, Fitness, and Finesse, where we build your wealth with wellness 5 reps at a time. I'm your host, JaeVic, and you're not woke, you're broke if you don't lock into this episode where industry experts share their insights on building wealth, managing stress, and living a balanced life. Before we get started, help your lifelong learner community grow by leaving a rate and review for the show on the homepage, or share this episode with someone you care about. And if you're looking for key resources and interactives to deepen your journey, head over to JaeVic.com. Today's guest is passionate about helping dual career couples create systems that bring harmony to their homes and finances, blending teamwork, equity, and intention in both love and money. In this episode of F3, I sit down with Brian Page, a nationally recognized financial educator, accredited financial counselor, and the founder of Modern Husbands. We'll cover topics like how to manage money as a team, the emotional toll of unbalanced household labor, creating systems that work for your relationship, and the evolving roles of modern partnerships. Whether it's building systems for domestic equity, aligning financial goals in a relationship, or learning how to run your home like a business without losing the love, this conversation is all about equipping you with the insight and inspiration to grow in both wellness and wealth. All right, let's get into it.
One, two, get down.
Tired of saying, "I'll do it tomorrow," feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, and consumed by decision fatigue? Dimensional Wealth helps turn intentions for a goal into action as you build wealth with wellness 5 reps at a time. In a world that values hustle over healing, momentum matters more than motivation. Through specialized resources, coaching, and intentional programming, Dimensional Wealth helps you take the first step and makes it possible to live a life of your design. It's time to live life on purpose, not autopilot. Design your blueprint for lifestyle fitness and holistic abundance at JaeVic.com. Link in the show notes. Hey Finessers, welcome back to the show. I'm super excited about today's guest. He's a businessman who has taught me the power of networking. If you aren't on LinkedIn connecting with people yet, you need to figure it out, because that's how you meet excellent professionals like Brian Page, the founder of Modern Husbands. Thank you for joining the show today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. Before we get into the wonderful topics that we're going to talk about, the first question I like to ask my guests is, what is your first money memory, or a memory where your relationship with money changed?
Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to take the second question of those 2 prompts. How did my relationship with money change? It's a story. Is that okay to tell?
Oh yeah, go for it. We love stories on this show.
Okay. So I grew up in a little rural town in Ohio, and my father grew up on a farm, a dairy farm that his parents were sharecroppers for. So they didn't have a lot of money. He had to actually live in a railroad car and work on the railroad while he finished college. So you can imagine in my home, frugality was a way of life. I got everything I needed as a kid. I was not deprived of anything, yet it felt like that I was the kid from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where my dad was the dad that drove junk cars. As a matter of fact, the junk cars I drove were so bad. I'll tell you about two of them. One of them, we were driving home from school, and this was before I had my license, and someone followed us home because they recruited it. It wasn't for sale. It wasn't like we had a for sale sign on the car. We didn't put for sale in soap on the back window. They just saw it and thought, ooh, you know what? I think that that's the perfect car to enter into the Clinton County Demolition Derby, which they purchased the car, got it prepared for the Derby, and I saw it win the Clinton County Demolition Derby. So that'll give you some sort of sense of what that car was like. And the second car was worse. When my dad went to sell it, or I should say trade it in, he had to trade it in when the hitch rusted off and it literally no longer worked. And the sales team saw it, or at least a member of the sales team did, and he was so impressed by it being the worst car he's ever seen that he actually gathered the rest of the sales team to look at it as my dad was trading it in. You have to imagine that everything was rusted off, right? On the inside, the speedometer didn't work, the gas gauge didn't work. If you lifted the carpet, you could see the road. But the best part was that the door handles had rusted off. And so to open the doors, he drilled holes in the doors and ran metal fish wire to the locks and had a hook. And so to open the door, as he showed the sales team, you grabbed the hook and yanked on it like you would a weed whacker, and then the door would yank open. So
Oh my gosh.
that was the car that we drove after the car that won the Clinton County Demolition Derby. Now, when I went off to college and realized that there's more to the world than little rural Ohio, I realized that that was probably excessive. My mom, although she was on disability at the time, she was a teacher, and my father was a computer engineer. So it wasn't like he wasn't making any money. And he also owned rental properties, right? So I realized when I went off to college, like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are my parents driving cars like this? So imagine I come home and I'm sitting at the kitchen table and I asked my father, why did you do this? Why did you drive a car like this? And he said, well, get out a calculator. And I did. And he said, well, how much is a car payment in your opinion for a reasonable car? And I don't know, Dad, $300, $400, something like that. And he said, okay, how much is full coverage insurance? Because it's a new car, it's not a junk car. And so I don't know, $100 a month. So I type in, the $400 a month between the car insurance and the car, and said, well, take that times 12. And I did. And he said, I take that times 20. And I said, well, what for? He said, well, that's car payments over 20 years. And there's this big number, right? Really big number. And I look at the number, I asked him, like, what's the point, Dad? What's the point? And he said, well, son, there's no way in hell that my kid is going to live in a railroad car like I had to pay for college. And that's how we paid for yours. And that's how I learned that money really is a tool to spend on the things and the people that you love the most. And that there are things that you have to be vigilant in sacrificing so you can be generous in the things that you would never want to sacrifice, like your kid's college education.
Now that is a story. I honestly got a little emotional that last part that you were saying. This is why I always have to mute myself when my guests are telling great stories like that, because I was laughing so hard when you were talking about that car, both the cars. And I can just tell from my little psychology perspective, the vividness of those memories, the way you were able to describe it. I mean, I could literally visualize it with you. And let me also say that the Page family clearly has that lifelong learner, finesser attribute, the way that your dad was able to put the car together with doing the locks and the wire. And
Yeah.
that is awesome. But I mean, coming all the way back to being at an age where, a lot of my listeners are at that age, like, we're in college, we're in life transitions, we're seeing what wealth or abundance could look like. And for example, it could be, why don't you drive a nicer car when you
Yeah.
are educated and have a good job? And the fact that you asked that question and your dad took the time to really sit down with you and help you understand rather than just saying it. He actually like worked with you through it to show you how money is a tool to expand your lifestyle rather than being slave to a certain type of image to try and keep up with the Joneses, quote unquote. I have a
Yeah.
lot of respect for that. So thank you for sharing that memory.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It's making me wonder because, modern husbands, we're going to get into the mission behind that. But ever since I first met you, Brian, not only in our business partnership, but it's very telling how core family is to you. And so from, the story passed down from like your grandfather to your father to, you're now also a father, a family man. What has been some of just like the core money methods and lessons you've tried to pass on to your kids?
First of all, it's always an ongoing conversation and modeling with kids, right? In talking to kids, it's helpful, but it's necessary to walk the walk if you really want it to get into becoming a part of who they are. And I don't lecture them on money. It doesn't work, right? So the lessons are usually in the moment. My youngest is a junior and has between their financial accounts, their custodial IRA and savings account and checking account, all on their own, just over 25,000 saved. And so, when we opened a custodial IRA, for example, that was the moment where I would show them what an IRA was, a Roth IRA. And then when I showed them the value of compounding over time, right, that was done with real money to try to convince them to max out their IRA. And so I just find those moments in time where they are taking to action the lessons that I think are valuable and then squeezing those lessons in. Probably, for me, the lesson that I think was most important was when I can just remember my youngest child was probably 8 or 9 years old. So that would have put my older kids in the teen years. But I had the idea of giving them in cash what we budgeted for their back to school shopping. So rather than having a list that included, new sneakers and the school supplies they needed, et cetera, where we went out and purchased it, I told them that they had to come up with that list. And then I handed them, let's say it was $200 in cash, and told them of the things on your list, you have to purchase obviously school supplies, right? Like those are the things that you need. But there might be some things on this list that you don't feel you need. And so when we go shopping, just know that this is your budget, this is your cash, meaning that whatever you do not spend is yours to keep. It's yours. And so rather than kids asking for more, this or that, they were asking, do I really need to buy new shoes, Dad? Do I have to? Can I keep the money? And it instantly created a saver mindset. And when you think about like a lot of the financial interactions that kids have with money in their childhood, it's all about receiving. It's never really about saving, or if it's saving, it's kind of forced saving, like a piggyback or whatever. But like psychologically, kids are rarely put into a position where saving money is an incentive. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like that's one of those activities that every parent can do to create a mindset of frugality, a mindset of saving that is not going to cost the parents any more money, right? I mean, you would use the $200 anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. I mean, I'm like, I don't have kids yet, but I was certainly taking some notes because the mindfulness and intentionality, it's not that complicated, but it's something that happens every year. I remember back to school shopping and it was always a little chaotic. We had these long lists. And I remember for me, I was always like, Mom, why can't I get the Crayola crayons with the 100 count of colors? And my parents work to try and also teach me that what is truly necessary and what ways can we work to be mindful about the purchases that we make. Now, I definitely wish that I had that experience when I was a little bit younger of how you've not only met your kids where they're at, because I can also attest to my parents did try to kind of talk to me about money, and I'd be like, I don't care until I really needed to learn when my back was against the wall as a young adult, So now I'm good. I'm on my financial fluency journey, but still instilling those habits when we're younger, it just helps continue to reinforce it. And to me, I was thinking about the term assisted autonomy, where you weren't super hands-on with your kids, but you gave them the option to, number one, use their brain, number two, become self-aware, and number three, be intentional. Intentionality is honestly, I think, becoming a lost art, Brian. So that's excellent. I hope anybody listening uses that, whether you have kids or not. I mean, I may use it when I go to the store later. Um, so your business, Modern Husbands, it focuses on helping couples manage money and the home as a team. How did your personal experiences inspire you to build this business? And I mean, tell us about the term Modern Husbands, because I know that's definitely what piqued my interest when we first made our connection.
Sure. I'll start with defining modern husbands. Essentially, when we think back in most cases, how our grandparents lived. I'll use my grandparents on my dad's side, where my grandfather was a sharecropper. My grandmother was third in her class in high school. She was brilliant. And all of her kids, like my parents and or my dad and my uncles and aunt, my uncle and aunt, brilliant. My cousins, brilliant, doctors, et cetera. And I think when you look back at that time, like my grandma would have been a doctor, but she was a woman. And so women didn't go to college, right? Women back then, they were homemakers. And at that time, like part of being a homemaker was helping run the farm. And then you look at the next generation, like with my parents, where women were traditionally the ones who had the flexible careers. So the husbands could have the career goals that led to them being the breadwinners. Well, in today's world, women are outpacing men as college graduates at every level: associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree. Women earn around the same, if not significantly more, in 45% of American homes. And so, this notion of a husband's role being limited to being the financial provider creates a lot of resentment and frustration in the home between the couples. It creates mom guilt for women who want to do everything that their mothers did for them, but cannot because they don't have the same types of careers. And it creates dad guilt for fathers who are working full time, but they're not the breadwinners. And they feel like that's not what was modeled for them. And throughout all these complexities, unless they're addressed by understanding what it is that can pull these two people together in a way to create an atmosphere of teamwork in the home, so where they can love one another and they can also support each other in a way where they can both excel in their careers, that requires systems to be put in place to run the home, much like you would run a business, where you don't default into the decisions where women are the ones who should be the primary caretakers. Women should be the primary caregivers. That's just not practical anymore. It doesn't make any sense. And it's not what makes couples who both have big careers happy. So the idea of a modern husband is someone who simply believes in an egalitarian relationship, who has common sense, and who understands that in the modern world, that there are better ways to cooperate within the home to make sure that both couples are succeeding in their careers. Where did I come up from this? I had a big job. My wife had a big job. We moved to Georgia for her big job, and we had 3 children, and we had some needs at home. And so it was flexibility and that we needed, and time, not really more money. And so I took a step back, and I am the lead person at home. Now, obviously I work full time, but when I did that, I was the guy who was working 80 hours a week. I had a bleeding ulcer before I was 40. I never did the laundry. I was like that traditional husband. And I was like, well, you know what? I got to figure this out. So I Googled, how do you be a great husband? And that's how it started. And so I became just obsessed with learning these strategies in the home. Much of the money side I already knew because of my professional background, right? So when I started to build out Modern Husbands, a lot of it was the money side. But what I learned is that the intertanglement between money management and home management, and then frankly, the mental load that comes with managing a home, is equally, if not more important. So I just started to dive into the research behind it, reading book after book after book, and then started to build out a company with an advisory board and learning the different ways in which couples can work together to manage money in the home as a team.
Brian, I can really tell that the compound interest of your experiences along with how you chose to invest your time throughout the years, where your family was in the transition with your wife's career taking a turn, and you saw that, okay, the family roles may be changing a little bit, but having the courage to go outside of your comfort zone and seek different perspectives. I mean, that is a huge part of our shared mission, and what we do with both of our businesses, but just in general with this show. And Brian also has a podcast, everyone. It'll be linked in the show notes, so check it out. But it's really about challenging your perspectives so that you can learn how to adapt when your lifestyle may be changing a little bit. I love the term modern husband so much because culturally, there's been just a lot of shifts as to what the norms are in regards to household responsibilities. So I understand the concept of egalitarian marriage, but how would you define that?
There is no one person who has more power over the other. It is truly an approach of equality in a relationship, which leads to the mindset of teamwork to run your marriage.
Amen. Amen. This man's spitting truth, guys. He's spitting truth. I love it. I love it. So, Brian, from my work in therapy, as you know, that's my primary field and expertise, and I love it very much. However, a lot of what I work with my clients on is getting to the roots as to why they hold certain behaviors, perspectives, habits, etc. And so, in talking about how, you're in relationships and you're moving towards different times in your life where one partner may be more busy or everybody has a different situation, what are the steps that someone would start to take if they find that they may hold a certain traditional view in regards to household expectations? How do you even start to dive into that as an individual? Do you have to have some sort of deep dive, or how do you make that a safe conversation with your partner? There's a lot there.
I hate to answer a question with a question, but in this scenario, which spouse believes that there should be more traditional roles in a home? Let me back up. Hopefully, this is a conversation that you have before you're married.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, seriously, Brian.
That's really important because I'll never forget talking to Dr. Mangino. She's wonderful. We do events together. She wrote Equal Partners. And she shared advice to me that has really stuck with me because it's so simple and so true. And that is, before you get married, and then throughout your marriage, you can always continue to ask this same question. Ask your partner, what does the ideal spouse look like to you? Paint that picture for me. Create that avatar. Walk me through that vision. Because really what you're asking is, tell me how to be the perfect spouse for you. That's what you're asking. And then the other spouse should ask you. And if you ask that question before you get married, and the person says, let's say that a woman asked that, and I'm just talking about heterosexual relationships here. Homosexual relationships are a little bit different. We can get to that in a second, but just for heterosexual relationships, if a woman were to ask a man that, and a man were to say, oh, I imagine my wife taking care of the kids and taking care of the home. And first, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that if that's what is going to create happiness for you. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's going to create happiness for a woman. And if that is the answer that she is looking for, then that is wonderful. Now, that's not a modern husband, and it's not what we focus on, but that is an answer that a lot of people love to hear. But let's say that that's the answer that you hear, and you are someone like yourself, a recent graduate, kicking ass in their career, who is ambitious, who has high aspirations about what they want to accomplish professionally. You're probably not going to like that very much, and that you probably need to have a pretty deep and intense conversation about the future of your relationship, because the idea of you as a spouse being the lead caregiver, being the lead homemaker, and also doing all of those things are going to create ongoing and daily competing priorities that is going to lead to a very frustrating marriage. So my suggestion would be to start out with that simple prompt. What does an ideal spouse look like to you? If you are in the thick of it and you have never asked that question and you've realized there is a disconnect here, the first thing you need to do is have a conversation about what it is that is creating the frustration for you. Because frankly, unless you talk through that frustration, there can be a lot of assumptions that could be standing in the way of problems that can be easily solved. There could be mom guilt, there could be dad guilt, there could be misunderstandings. So you need to talk through what you each are looking for in your relationship.
That's such a powerful question, Brian. I appreciate you walking us through that because, like what you said, right now, I know I'm in a time in my life where the continued development of my individuality is very important. And there can be just a certain level of toxicity playing the game of relationships or feeling like you're in too deep to ask some of those questions.
Yeah.
And I know for me,
Yeah.
sometimes whenever I've had my partner around and there's just certain things that it's like, oh, like, why can't you just like help me keep my living space up to par with what my expectations are, but not being sure how to talk to a partner without making them feel bad. So, I mean, how does somebody bridge the gap with having some of those harder conversations, Brian? I mean, like, do we need a safe word to be like, hey, here's the
Mistletoe,
yeah,
mistletoe.
exactly. Yeah,
For
one
Chris.
of my safe words was brownie at some point. I was like, "Hey, brownie, I'm about to like tell you something that may not feel so good. It's a deeper conversation, but yeah, I mean, how do we bridge the gap to
Wait,
making
do
it
you live with
safe?"
your partner?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. That makes it easier. Okay. Okay, so those are separate things that are both important to address. I think the first is how do you approach the conversation? And let's look at this through couples who are dating. And I think the first thing to recognize is that a lot of the conversations occur by just being aware of the choices that that other person is already making. And what do I mean by that? When you walk into their apartment, is it a dump? Like the apartment can be a dump and really tidy. So are they neat freaks or are they slobs? Like right away, you're going to have a really powerful glimpse into the standard of care that's acceptable for your partner and compare that to yours because that in itself is going to be a point of friction. And if one of you is a slob and the other is a neat freak, then you know that there's going to be problems. You can work through those. Like, don't, if you're listening to this, don't be like, I gotta dump my boyfriend because he's a slob. There's also the point of like guys grow up later. Like I'm the kind of guy that had a mattress on the floor and a futon until I was like 25 or 24 and married. But I think like you can also see the same things in how people just spend money. Like if you're going on your first, second, or third date and you're going somewhere that is taking you way outside of your financial comfort zone, you need to have a conversation or you need to look at their social media and see, is this just literally how they always go out? Or don't, because you don't want to assume, or are they just trying to impress you? If this is how they always live their life and it's outside your comfort zone, that could be an issue because that means that that's how they grew up and that's how they want to live. And if you don't want to always be outside of your comfort zone, if the person is constantly wearing really expensive clothes, you can see it with their wardrobe. That's a glimpse into what they value and how they will likely want to spend their money when they are older. And the same can be true for people who are extremely frugal, like with the car that they drive or the clothes that they wear. So a lot of this isn't necessarily a conversation isn't necessarily required right away. Usually just observation is appropriate and then being curious about why they made those choices. I think the best time to do that is just through really innocent conversations and probing without the other partner feeling like, man, this person's getting real serious right now. Like they're freaking me out. And, I'm in my mid 40s. And so I'm probably not the person to talk to about those types of subtleties or nuances. But I'm sure that your listeners are well aware of how to approach those conversations in that way. Let's say you're deeper in the relationship and you've been together for a long time and you're trying to figure out whether to really take it to the next step. I try to give other people props when they give me the idea. The name's escaping me. Abby Davidson gave me the idea of going away on a trip. And when you go away on the trip, budgeting. for the trip, having a conversation about where you go, what you want to do, how much money you want to spend, those types of things. And you being the curious one that's asking all the questions, because that'll give you a really good sense of their vision of enjoyment, what they like to spend money on, where they don't like to spend money. I mean, maybe they want and I'm one of these guys. Maybe they want really great vacations. You don't want to assume because they want a great vacation that they spend money in every aspect of their lives. I'm that way. I love experiences. I don't, for the most case, love possessions. And those conversations will play out naturally when you're setting up a budget to go somewhere. If you are already married, that's a whole different animal. So anyway, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And we'll get into the if you're already married, because we definitely want to talk about your marriage toolkits. But what I was hearing, or what I picked up from your guidance just now, Brian, is if you want to have a genuine relationship, you need to have a genuine curiosity, not only in the other person's habits and values, but you really have to be genuine with yourself in looking internally as to what your values are.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, from talking to my peers, clients, even myself, sometimes the value can be based around people pleasing or wanting
Mm-hmm.
to just keep the honeymoon phase going so well. And, oh, we have so much chemistry. But I mean, if you really want to have a genuine relationship through the ups and downs that, I'm sure you can attest to happen throughout decades long relationship, marriage. But I just love that genuine curiosity of just letting the questions flow. And what I'm taking from this is that if there is any sort of tension or lashback or aggressiveness, if you ask those questions, that's again just more information to put in your pocket as to whether it can work out with this person. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Can you actually touch on real quick the differences in societal dynamics between the heterosexual and homosexual relationships in regards to roles in the household?
So there's a couple things to address here. Like first, I've learned this from the Queer Money podcast guys. If you're in the queer community, I highly recommend their podcast. They're on my advisory board. They're awesome. There's a different layer of complexity, and this is according to them, for folks in that community, because oftentimes in that culture, you have to kind of look really good all of the time. You have to dress the part all of the time. And so there's a different standard of care that comes with that might be outside of somebody's comfort zone, but they feel like that they have to do it because of the way kind of society has boxed them in. And there are also different types of support that heterosexual couples take for granted that folks in the LGBTQ plus community don't necessarily get. And it could be the fact that you are protected in some states, but in other states you are not. Particularly in the last 4 years, there's been significant state level laws that have been passed that are touching on the rights of some folks in that community. Unfortunately, it is more likely that parents will be less supportive of relationships in that community. And so things like inheritance or things like paying for weddings, helping with college, like those types of financial support are less likely to be received and are more likely to create financial hardships. So those are challenges that kind of have to be worked through that are probably more prevalent for couples in the LGBTQ plus world.
Wow, I've honestly never thought about that. And then even tying it into the emotional relationship part with money, I'm sure it contributes to a scarcity mindset, to insecurity around funds, trust with money as well. So thank you for speaking on that. If anyone wants any other resources or information on that, please check the show notes out. Check out Modern Husbands. He has just a plethora of resources and information there. So
But
thank you
I
for.
I have to give the shout out though, because although we are clearly, you can see from my website that
Mhm.
we are welcoming of all different types of relationships. I have a wife. I lean heavily on the Debt Free guys and the Queer Money podcast, the same guys. They also
Mhm.
have a show on Yahoo Finance.
Oh,
Please
wow.
check them out. They are the
Yeah, we'll link
best.
them too.
Yes, please link them then as well. Queer Money podcast guys, and you'll find the Yahoo Finance show that they host in New York City weekly.
Thank you for putting me on too. I'll have to check those out. What's your breakdown of the Marriage Family Toolkit? How can people utilize it and access it? All the above.
Okay, well, first of all, if you want to access it, you need to hire Jalen because she has some of them. How she works through that with clients is up to her, but you need to reach out to her. And you can see it on my website. There's a free preview. If you go to modernhusbands.com, you'll see the button at the top of the page for Marriage Toolkit. Everything, you can find everything on modernhusbands.com. You can find our podcast, our socials, etc. But anyhow, it's designed for couples who are busy, who are time scarce. They don't have the time or the motivation to do some sort of entire course that requires sequential learning. So think of it as a digital library of topics that are common frustrations in marriage. And it is nearly 50 of the nation's leading experts in the world of family and marriage management. So a lot of it is obviously focused on managing money as a team, supporting each other's careers, and home management, like the systems that we can put into place to manage our homes more efficiently and fairly. Imagine this digital library of those topics where in most cases you can work through a topic in 30 minutes. And the topics include the interview with the expert contributor, conversation prompts, activities, text, and graphics. And it can be used as a one-off, or you can review the entire toolkit. It's up to what you think is in the best interest of your relationship. It is really focused on what is often missed in just general education in schools, and then also, in the social media world of the relational aspect of managing money in the home, right? Like so much of what I see focuses on the individual, but when you throw someone else in the mix, it adds a layer of complexity that is needed, that is holds people back, that creates problems if it's unaddressed, and this toolkit addresses it.
Well, I appreciate the shout out as well because I am so pumped I already have one client couple that is looking forward to checking out the toolkit with me. So thank you for breaking that down. There's nothing wrong with having some sort of guidance, especially engaging content that you can utilize with your partner to help with those conversations outside of our safe words, mistletoe and brownie. Maybe the safe word is like, hey, let's go look at our toolkit, mistletoe, So that's awesome. To close out, Brian, what is something that you want to leave our audience with? Like I said, my Finesser community is wide and broad. Of course, you're a part of it, but there's a lot of Finessers that listen who are in the middle of different life transitions, whether that is in our careers and where we're living, especially in our relationships. What is something that you want to leave our Finesser community with today?
To have regular scheduled conversations about the business of your relationship, a time and place where you're not stressed out, where you're not going to be interrupted. And that could be daily check-ins. It could be weekly 1-hour talks. It all depends on what your needs are. But, relationships are work that require ongoing communication, that at a time where emotion is low, so cognition can be high, and you can work through the business of that relationship separately so you can enjoy the rest of your relationship without hidden resentment or lingering questions, where you can really focus on the fun parts of being together with each other.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Finance, Fitness, and Finesse. If you enjoyed this episode, take action and share this episode and tell your friends, you're not woke, you're broke. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to build your wealth with wellness, 5 reps at a time. I'm JaeVic, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until next time, don't forget to visit JaeVic.com. Be sure to keep finessing, and if you don't know, now you know. Disclaimer, this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial or mental health advice. Always seek professional guidance tailored to your personal needs.